all across America. As a result, Baha'is are increasingly recognized as a leading force for solving racial problems.
Today, as we have said, we want to look at the role the Baha'i faith is playing in Austin and what you should know about this unique religious community. Joining us to share their experiences of the Baha'i faith are two of its members here in the capital city. Our first guest is Alan Kemp, a member and current vice chair of the Baha'i faith in Round Rock. Also joining us today is Virginia Rogers. She has been a very active member of the Baha'i faith here in Austin. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
As we looked at the video just now, there was a mention of the electoral process in the Baha'i faith. Could you tell us a little bit about what that's like and what it accomplishes?
Well, on the local level, the spiritual assembly is elected once a year, and it is an election by all of the members of the community, and anyone is eligible, anyone who is 21 years of age or over and in good standing. And there's no electoral process, there's no nominating, there's no campaigning, nothing like that. So it's an extremely democratic form of government, you might say.
It is done entirely by everybody voting for 9 people, and the 9 people who have the highest number of votes gets elected, regardless of whether any one person voted for all 9 of those or not. There are no parties or anything like that where you put together a slate. It guarantees that almost every segment will get good representation within the community also. In addition to the local level, then there is also an election like that nationally once a year, where each local community has selected delegates, which it sends to the national convention, and they elect the officers, the members of the assembly nationally. And then every 5 years we have one universally.
Is that usually held in any particular place?
It is usually held in Haifa, Israel, which is the official seat of the administrative body internationally.
Okay, so what you're saying is that when the group gathers together and are preparing to elect their assembly members, names are just dropped in the hat, or however you do it, and no one has politicked among the group to try to corner votes for themselves or anything like that.
As a matter of fact, if you campaign at all, that can be grounds for your losing your administrative rights and your ability to vote or be voted for. It's a guarantee that we will keep politics of any kind out of our electoral process, and that the election will take place strictly based upon the individuals' experiences of other individuals in the community and their feelings of who they feel would be best suited to guide the community in the next year.
That's very interesting. How do they know about these candidates so that they can vote intelligently?
Well, I would say the main way that they know about it is about these people is by being involved in their community. So the Baha'i community is a very activist, or pro-activist, I guess you might say, within itself. It's that most of the members are pretty active and know each other pretty well. So they know their qualities. There's people who are not active, of course, but generally speaking, the Baha'i community is pretty proactive.
There is no such thing as a candidate, or else everybody is a candidate.
Yes.
If you are an adult member of the community, you are a candidate.
Okay.
Everybody is eligible, everybody can be voted for. So we say there are no nominations. You start off with prayer and meditation, reading of the writings, and then you sit down and you write down the names of the 9 people who you personally think would be the best suited.
Well, that's really interesting. I also noted in the video that there was some talk about the spiritual assembly. Can you sort of describe the spiritual assembly for us a bit?
Okay, the spiritual assembly itself forms after the election and elects officers. The officers are officers only in the spiritual assembly meeting. In other words, you said I was a vice chairman earlier. Right now, I'm not a vice chairman. Right now, I'm just another person. But in the assembly meeting, because of the need for orderliness, and continuity, we have the officers. The assembly consults. We don't have a system of advocacy, so the system that we use is called consultation, where an idea is presented, and all of the members of the assembly speak to that idea rather than speaking to the person who gave that idea. So what this results in is, if I give an idea, I put it on the table, I can criticize the idea. Even though it's my idea, I can be critical of it. And all of the other members can be critical of it. And by this system, we can come to the truth, or come to a better, a closer approximation of the truth.
Of course, of course. That sort of flies in the face, in a sense, of our political process, in which candidates often are very reticent or loath to criticize any ideas that they come up with.
Yeah.
Well, another thing, the meetings of the local spiritual assembly and the national spiritual assembly and of the universal body are all done in complete secrecy. And at the end of the meeting, whatever has been decided upon, everybody who is present in that meeting totally supports. There is no such thing as anybody feeling like they have a constituency or any special interest to serve in any way. Nobody knows who voted for or against any particular things. There is unity in decision that when a decision has been reached, everybody will support that. And it brings about a tremendous unity of thought and purpose in the entire community. Now, if you still in your heart feel like the decision was wrong, then there is always an appellate process that you can go through. But you go through that while at the same time supporting the existing decision. You keep your feelings about it within the administrative process rather than destroying the whole activity. Almost any decision, if there is unity of purpose in implementing it, will turn out to be a good one. And almost none, if there is divisiveness, will turn out to be good. We see that over and over in all kinds of things. We've seen it here in our Austin politics with issues where one city council will vote one way and the next one will come along and vote another way on the same issue, causing a lot of rancor over years over the same issue that kept us from really accomplishing anything during the period. Whereas if we had had unity of thought, we would have moved forward. We find the same thing true in business and everything else, that when the people involved in implementing it are agreed that that's what they're going to do and work toward it, we have success and movement in a very positive direction.
Could you just talk to me briefly about how the Baha'is responded to the situation in LA after the Rodney King decision? Just kind of briefly share some of your some of what we saw in the video, what you know about that?
How the Baha'is in Los Angeles?
Right. Do you have any idea about that?
I'm not real familiar with it, but I do know, I guess I know as much as was in the video.
In the video.
Yeah. They responded very positively by coming together and providing the center, the Baha'i Center in Los Angeles is located in that area, and it was the center was only minimally damaged. And so they came and used that as a center of support, community support for the larger community. There were lots of Baha'is involved in that. Los Angeles is a large Baha'i community, so there were a lot of people involved.
Well, it certainly looks like there was a great deal of activity from the community and instigated by the Baha'i group.
There definitely was, and it was not only the Baha'is in Los Angeles. There were actually Baha'is all over the country who had various skills of special natures that they could offer, who flew out to Los Angeles in order to provide their supports too in different areas.
I'm sorry to say, but we're going to have to stop our conversation for just a moment. We have to take a short break, but we will be back with more of our discussion of the Baha'i faith on Austin Faith Dialogue in just a moment. Please stay with us.
Serving Austin means serving you. Each day, Austin Metropolitan Ministries is religion in action, providing affordable housing, caring for the elderly, marching against hunger, and much more. AMM promotes understanding, cooperation, and social involvement. So when we ask for your help, we're really asking to help you, Austin. To find out how you can help Austin Metropolitan Ministries help Austin through its member organizations, just call 472-7627.
We're back on Austin Faith Dialogue. Today we're discussing the growing role of the Baha'i faith, not only here in Austin, but worldwide, and what you should know about this unique faith. Joining us to help us gain a better understanding are two members of the Baha'i faith here in the Austin area. They are Virginia Rogers and Alan Kemp. Just a brief word about kind of a quirky thing. I noticed that in the literature that you mentioned the founding of the Baha'i faith as having occurred in 1844 AD. And AD is a Christian designation. And of course the Jewish calendar uses CE, Common Era. And I just wondered why you all, why that's so.
The Baha'i faith also has its separate calendar, as does the Muslim faith. The year 1844 AD was also the year 1260 of the Muslim calendar. It was the year 1 of the Baha'i calendar. And so we do have our separate calendar, but because we are in the United States, we use the calendar that is most prevalent here when addressing anything to the general public.
Okay, very good. I also noted that one of the principles that the Baha'i faith is working toward is the equality of women and men. However, I've also noticed that the language is very male-dominated. God is referred to in masculine terms, and so is humanity. And I just wondered, in terms of moving toward this sense of equality, if the language presents any barrier to you at all, or what you have to say about that.
I find it extremely interesting that the Baha'i faith was revealed in probably what may be the only language in the world that has no designation for he or she in their language. It is a language that is almost completely devoid of sexism terms, the Persian language. And I think that that is something that eventually will take place. But at this point, again, we use what is the standard for the culture in which we are whenever we're talking about things for going toward the non-Baha'i public.
Yes.
It just works better to use what is the standard.
Yes. I noticed that there was also some talk of coming to a universal language. And if you're able to get this universal language developed, would it reflect greater inclusiveness? Is that a conversation that you've had at all?
That's still a ways off, and it's hard to know which way will be done. We were told that we could either adopt an existing language and make that an auxiliary language for everybody in the world to learn, or we could develop a new language and have that. We believe there needs to be an auxiliary world language for everybody in the world, not just Baha'is.
Yes.
And that decision won't be made just by Baha'is. It will be made by the peoples of the world.
Yes.
But I believe that the principles are so strong, such as the principle of the equality of the races and the equality of the sexes, that we've seen a tremendous movement in the 150 years since the Baha'i faith started. And I believe we will continue to see tremendous movement as it was initiated by them and followed by the rest of the world, with or without acknowledgement of the role of the Baha'i faith in it. And I believe that that more inclusive language is something that will probably come about. But that is something that everybody in the world has to decide if we're going to have an auxiliary world language.
Well, we'll certainly be keeping an eye on that and wishing you well as you spearhead that movement. Let's talk some about what's happening among Baha'is here in Austin. How long have you been here?
Actually, I've only been here 7 years, but Virginia's been here quite a while, so she can probably answer that better than I can.
The Baha'i faith actually has had a real strong presence in Austin since at least the 30s. The first local spiritual assembly was actually elected here in Austin. I believe it was in 1961. And there are still several members of our community who were on that first local spiritual assembly,
yes.
which is real nice to have them as a part of our community.
How many members do y'all have and where do y'all meet?
It depends if you're talking, in the city of Austin itself, we have a
Yes.
little over 200 members, adult members. In the greater Austin area, I don't even know what the numbers are. Here in Austin, we meet at the Bahai Center, which is over on Airport Boulevard, 4317 Airport. In the other communities, they basically either meet in community centers or in homes.
Well, let's talk some about the activities that you're presently engaged in, particularly around the issues of racism. I know you're very, Alan, you're very much involved in that.
Yes, we have several Baha'is in the area have started an organization called the Institute for the Healing of Racism.
Yes.
And presently we're meeting every Saturday and viewing a film series and then having discussion. It doesn't necessarily revolve exactly around the film, but the film serves as a stimulus for it. And the discussion is generally how racism has affected us and what we can do to eliminate the racism within us and help reduce and eliminate eventually the racism in our society.
Where are y'all meeting?
Invite everybody.
We're meeting at this, for this series.
For
we're
this
meeting,
series.
Right. We're meeting at the Carver Library, and it's at 3:30 to 5:30 on Saturday, and it's an open meeting, so everyone is welcome.
What have you, in terms of the meetings that you've had already in the film series, what kinds of issues have been raised, and how does the Baha'i faith enable you to address some of the things that have been talked about so far?
The issues that have been raised are stereotypes, mainly. Well, that's the biggest issue, and looking within ourselves and seeing how we are affected by racism, what we feel about people of other colors, and what we can do if it's an action-oriented group. It's a forum for promoting action. So it's not in one term, it's not an activist type of thing where we're going to go out and raise Cain, but what we're doing is trying to get people to do things with themselves, within themselves, and for the community to bring about the equality of the races
and the healing of racism.
And the healing, right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Virginia, what are some other things that are happening in the Austin area that we might need to know about you'd like to share with us?
There is a constant and ongoing stream of activities that are going on in the Austin area. You know, this issue of racism has been one that the Baha'i faith has been interested in for 150 years. For at least the last 80, we've considered it the most challenging issue. We've had a tremendous number of activities connected with that every year, always since the Baha'i faith has been in existence. We always participate very actively in Martin Luther King Day, in Race Unity Day, in Juneteenth, etc. We also have regular programs on such subjects as the equality of men and women, on equitable distribution of the wealth, on the environment. We participate actively in Earth Day and activities of that type. basically, in order to find out about any of the Baha'i activities, you can call the Baha'i Center. We can advise people of that. That number is 459-4417. There is a conference on the UT campus coming up next month on racism again. That is sponsored by the Austin Bahai by the College Club of the Baha'is, and we're real excited about that conference. We have a very, very active group on the UT campus. In fact, last year they got the award for the outstanding religious group on campus by the UT administration.
Well,
so
that's interesting to know. I didn't know that, and I work with students at the University of Texas. Well, let me ask you, when do you meet? Christians meet generally for worship on Sunday. When do you have meetings for your spiritual assembly?
As Virginia mentioned earlier, we do have a calendar, and our calendar is a solar calendar, so it has months based on the sun. And we have 19 months in the year, and each month we have a worship day, or a day when we come together. It's called the feast day. And so there's 19 of them, and there's 19 days in each month.
We also have here in Austin every Thursday evening at 7:30 a meeting gathering where we talk about various issues of concern to the Baha'i faith, and anyone is invited to come always and participate in that. That is Thursday evenings at 7:30 at the Bahai Center on Airport. We have, again, constant activities, but I think it's important to note, too, that in our faith we are taught that work, when performed in a spirit of service, is elevated to the station of worship. So we believe that every time we're working, when we're doing it in that spirit, we are worshiping God, and we don't necessarily have to be together in order to do that.
Well, very interesting. I'm so sorry to say, however, but we're out of time. I realize that we have only begun to scratch the surface of this topic, but thank you for sharing your insights into the Baha'i faith with our viewers. I'd like to thank Alan Kemp and Virginia Rogers for joining me today. I also want to thank you for watching and invite you to join us again next week for another edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. Until then, peace.
For more information, call Austin Metropolitan Ministries at 472